Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth episode of the Catalyst for Change webinar series organized by the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance, which is an umbrella organization of the various offices of economic development across the region. We have a wonderful webinar for you today, a fun webinar, in fact, and a rather auspicious one in that at about 3:30 Eastern, the rover Perseverance will land on Mars. And this discussion today is about rovers, autonomous rovers. And this will be a lot of fun. Let me just take you a few slides, if I may, and then I'll introduce our panel. So let me just do that. I'll give you some quick data points that will frame the discussion and create a little more context. So just bear with me if you would. And I will get that going here. Stand by one sec. Zoom takes a little time to catch up with us. So Catalyst for Change, how companies turn disruption into success. This discussion today focuses on Starship Technologies and its fleet of autonomous robots, or as we like to say in this little title, R2D2 delivers to keep you safe. Here are some quick stats, just take you through and try to digest these a bit. Just first a definition, if I might. Autonomous last mile delivery, autonomous robotic delivery, includes unmanned surface vehicles, cars and rovers, and airborne vehicles like drones. Soon, this will include autonomous drive trucks and eventually trains, which is fascinating. The size of the market of the global autonomous last mile delivery market is 11.9 billion this year, growing to an astonishing 85 billion in just 9 more years. That is quite the growth rate. On the US delivery side, US delivery business is 118 billion this year by the year end. The US food delivery business itself, which is a subset, right, of that larger number, grew 21% in 2020. Not surprising, massive kick up in growth because of COVID. Grew up from 22.1 to 26.5 billion last year, and is expected to grow again up to 28.5 billion this year. Last mile delivery represents 50% of supply chain costs. And I found this to be an astonishing number, actually. I didn't realize it was that high, a segment of the overall cost. Now, specifically regarding Starship Technologies, the company launched in 2014. It made its first delivery in 2015, and then just, I believe, a couple of 3 weeks ago, reached its 1 millionth delivery across its fleet. Starship serves 30 markets across the United States and Europe. It operates over 1,000 robots on its network. Other companies which you'll be familiar with involved in autonomous delivery include Amazon Prime. That's both the surface robots they have, but also famously their drones. Waymo, which is an autonomous drive taxi service, AutoX, and Nuru. Now I have a robot on, but they're all out delivering food right now. So it's not which is a good problem to have. Let me go ahead and just briefly introduce our panelists. We have Juan Conaway, who is area manager of Starship Technologies. He's been with Starship for 4 years now. And he began when he was a student at George Mason University. He oversees operations across the East Coast of the United States, particularly Fairfax City, George Mason University, James Madison University, and recently added Bridgewater State University up in Massachusetts. Tatiana Farr. Tatiana is the owner of the Coyote Grill in Fairfax City, and she has been in the food business for 20 years. Seeing a drought of fresh, flavorful Southwestern-inspired cuisine in Northern Virginia, Tatiana launched Coyote Grill in early 2002, opening its doors in the heart of Fairfax City. Since then, Tatiana has expanded her business by adding Roaming Coyote, a food truck service started in 2018, as well as maintaining a parallel catering business that recently purchased a brick and mortar catering company in 2019. Christopher Bruno. Christopher has been the Director of Economic Development for the City of Fairfax, Virginia since 2016. Since arriving in Fairfax, Chris has been responsible for overseeing the strategic development of collaborative incubation services with GMU, George Mason University, innovative new business recruitment strategies, the EDA-owned property redevelopment, and COVID-19 recovery programs. Prior to arriving in Fairfax, Chris was Assistant General Counsel at the New York City Department of Small Business Services. So welcome, panelists. So we have the actual folks here. I'll take me out of this PowerPoint and then away we go. There are our panelists. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. So we saw that video, again, auspicious day with Perseverance landing in about an hour and a half on Mars. But closer to home, we have Starship Technologies. And so let's, if I may, begin with you, Juan. That's an unusual name for a food delivery robot. How did they all get started? How did the company start?
Absolutely. So Starship was co-founded, like you said, in 2014 by actually two of the people that co-founded Skype. And they were actually, before starting the company, they participated in a competition with NASA to design a Mars rover. And they didn't end up winning the competition, but they did come up with the idea to use their design to eventually provide deliveries here on Earth. So since 2014, we've had a lot of growth. I joined in early 2017. The robots have gotten a lot more autonomous and just safer, smarter. And like you mentioned, we've completed our millionth delivery just a couple of weeks ago. So very exciting stuff.
And did I have that number right? 30 cities or 30 markets globally?
Yeah, it's kind of changing by the week, expanding more and more.
That's great. And so Europe and the US, not necessarily in Asia just yet.
That's right.
Okay, great. And tell us about the robot. I mean, I have to ask the question. If I see these videos, I'm thinking, okay, that's Fred and that's Sylvia. Do they have names? Because I mean, I would.
So they don't have like official names. We just call it the Starship, but each individual one has like a code number assigned to it. Okay. But I will say a lot of our operations are in college campuses, and so the students there love to get those little name tags that say, "Hi, my name is," and then they fill it out.
Do they really do that?
Yeah, at James Madison University, I guess a sorority or something must have teamed up, and they got all the robots in one day. So they came up with all these names. And we had to take them off the robots, but we keep them in our wall there as a reminder.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think they're begging for it. And tell us about the robots, if you would. They have cameras Sure. and sensors.
Yeah, so they're little sidewalk-sized delivery robots, about the size of a large cooler. They have 6 wheels, and they have about 10 cameras, so they have 360-degree vision of their environment. This allows them to see pedestrians, vehicles, traffic lights, all that sort of stuff. On top of that, they have ultrasonic sensors, which are like your car's parking sensors. When you get too close to another car, it starts beeping, for example. They have radars to sense oncoming traffic, and this other technology called time of flight cameras, which are special cameras that basically sense invisible LED lights that we beam off things, and it kind of allows us to see how far something is, so better obstacle detection.
And I think we saw in the video, these robots are capable of climbing a curb, or how does that work? Just independent wheels?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of similar to some of the rovers we've had out on Mars as well, that the 2 back wheels are joined in something we call a bogey, but it basically allows them to do a caterpillar motion, climb over obstacles and climb over curves.
That's really cool. Tell us, if you would, about the ordering process. I don't have your robots near me, but if I did, they'd be hovering outside the house right now. So how does that work? And Tatiana, on your side of the equation, maybe you could jump in too, but Juan, why don't you just give us the basics?
Of course. So, we set out to make the robot and the software that, allows the robot to drive itself. But on top of that, we've built our own service. So it's like we've built our own sort of Postmates, DoorDash sort of thing. So we supply the restaurants with a tablet and a phone. So a customer will use our app to order delivery, and the order gets transferred to the restaurant. The restaurant accepts the order and prepares the food. And when it's ready, they use the phone that we give them to unlock the robot and load it. And then the customer gets a notification that, the rover's on its way. When it arrives, you get a notification that, it's ready for you, and you use your phone to unlock the robot. So only you or the restaurant can unlock the robot.
And
Yeah,
Tatiana,
and I can just say that it's worked really seamlessly, and all of the customers that have gotten it, they just think it's great to be able to use their phone to be able to get this robot to come to their house and basically deliver food or margaritas. And they just it's been a really good thing for them during this whole pandemic. So
I want to credit Juan and the team at Starship too, because when we were looking at launching this pilot with them, sort of the accessibility and equity feature of how our businesses in the city would participate was always on our mind. And the fact that Starship provided the phone and the tablet to businesses that didn't necessarily have pre-existing technology to participate in this program was a big seller for us, honestly. It allowed us to sort of level the playing field for all of the participants. So I think Starship deserves a lot of credit for that.
absolutely.
It's definitely been a team effort. And I thank Chris as well for bringing us together. He was part of the EDA, was able to allow Starship to reach all of these businesses in the city. And it was actually the first sort of integration or partnership that Starship has had in the United States to this level.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just on the, I look at these little guys. Yeah, I personify them already. I look at these robots, and I think about what else they could deliver. And I think at the height of the pandemic, well, at an earlier peak in the pandemic, tell us about that, because I think you're
Sure.
working with some of the grocery stores.
Yeah, so I guess our business now is really hot food, cooked food delivery. It's kind of our bread and butter, if you will. But we do grocery deliveries as well. And we wanted to provide that to the city of Fairfax, especially at the height of the pandemic. In other markets, we provide tons of different grocery options. We do package delivery. In Germany, we work with different factories and pharmaceuticals companies to deliver parts, license plates, pharmaceuticals, things like that.
And for the audience, I saw there was a spot on Fox 5, I guess, middle of last year, some coverage you had, and Tatiana of your restaurant, Coyote Grill, and Chris, you were on this, and Juan, actually all three of you are on it. And, in burning my mind was, well, what if I have a lot of groceries? And the answer on the spot was, they'll send two robots. So, there's logic for you right there. So if you look forward so in Germany, if you're delivering pharmaceuticals and machine parts, might that come to the US as well?
Yeah, it's definitely on the table, and we're exploring all sorts of different avenues. Lately in the US, we've had a lot of success with college campuses or corporate campuses, just because it's kind of an ideal environment for the robots. It's nice and enclosed and pretty ADA friendly for us.
Right. And that's a great test of ADA friendly in any case,
Yeah.
although sort of unintended, perhaps. Tatiana, so you own Coyote Grill. You have a catering business on the side, and you have your own mobile unit. Tell us about your business, please, and where it physically is within Fairfax City.
Well, I've been in business for, call it 20 years. It's over 19. I signed a lease 20 years ago, so that's why I say I'm in business 20 years. I've just been part of Fairfax City that's really embraced the community. People laugh at me when I call it Mayberry, but it really is. People really enjoy being part of the community, and we're part of the community, and we embrace all the schools and the local community organizations, and I've been very fortunate to be able to be part of this, embedded in this community. So I added a food truck when the demand called for it, and then as far as a catering company, the demand called for it, so I've had that pretty much the whole time as well.
But between your food truck, was it 2018 or 19? That's a rather recent occurrence.
Yeah, I think it was 18. Mm-hmm.
So in the last 2 years, roughly, you've added, of course, that, and now this for delivery. And what was the impetus for was it the COVID pandemic that was the impetus to work with Starship?
Pretty much, it was something that Chris had brought to my attention that they wanted to integrate robot delivery into the community. And I was like, robot delivery, what are you even talking about? And then he told me that it was the little white robots that go around campus. I was like, oh yeah, I've almost like run into them when I was out running. So, which is really, I thought that would be really cool. I was like, I'd never even thought about bringing that in. But, at the time, in the very beginning of the pandemic, everyone was just afraid to even leave their house, didn't want to leave their house. And so this was like a nice, within the radius of the city was like a really cool option. And I was like, I'm all in. I'm all in.
And from a client perspective, are there certain types of customers that request the robot? How do they become aware of the robot? If
Not really. It was a 1 mile radius. It is pretty much, I think that's correct, Juan, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which 1 mile?
So within the 1 mile, we have a wide swath of customers. So, we've got families and some college kids. And so really we had everybody. I think when people started seeing robots going around and they were asking about it and they were seeing them out in front of the restaurant, they were like, what is this? Oh my gosh, So a lot of people, somewhat of a novelty just to be able to have food delivered by a robot to their house. And then also to combine that in with the safety of, contactless and not having another human bringing their food over.
Exactly. And as you say, it's, I've been to Fairfax City a number of times, but to me, it strikes as sort of a perfect model. Mm-hmm. And Chris, we're going to come back to that margarita point too with you, because I just heard that one. But tell us, so Fairfax City, why is it sort of an ideal setup for these sort of things?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. First, Fairfax City is ideal because, it's ideal for many of these pilot type projects because it's really 6.2 square miles, and that allows for entrepreneurs to scale up or down quickly in a controlled laboratory environment. So that makes us particularly attractive to, entrepreneurs and innovators. But we also have a little bit more autonomy and authority granted to us in operating our streets and our right-of-ways. So that allows us to sort of respond more in real time and be more collaborative with some of these businesses as they want to try some things. And
right, so it's a fairly close-knit, in double entendre there, but it's a physically close city. It is relatively, it's certainly not mountainous. It's relatively flat. And you've got that
Mars terrain.
No, it's got some hills.
Oh, it does. All right. So yeah, I've got to get down there and spend more time. And what struck me when I started doing some of the research, to the audience, I should have mentioned, sorry, we will be taking questions. So if you have questions that are occurring to you, at the bottom of your screen, if you mouse down, it says Q&A. And so please just go ahead and start populating questions. If you're a Mac user, I think it's the top of your screen. But in any case, if you move your mouse, you'll get the menu bar. Autonomous vehicles in Virginia, it's not a new phenomenon, right? You have Virginia Tech that has its autonomous drive test bed, I think it's called, a research center. And it's one of 4 or 5 test beds across the country for autonomous vehicles. But even though, tell us about Northern Virginia though, because there's some other activities for that.
So, this region is really becoming sort of known as a foundational market for entrepreneurs and big businesses working in tech with inventions and design. And so the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance, of which, Fairfax City is one of the founding members, is really trying to position this region as a hotbed for testing these types of things. From a pilot perspective, Fairfax City is really open to this type of thing. We want to show the world that this is a good place to come in and do these things. And hopefully within the next week or two, we have some exciting announcements of some pilot projects that we'll be rolling out. From an autonomous vehicle perspective, we have one of those things that I'd like to talk about in the next couple of weeks is in Fairfax City, but we have some of our regional partners who are working on some things right now. And Fairfax County is currently administering a pilot. I think it's an autonomous bus that runs between the Dunloring Metro Station and the Mosaic Multi-Use Development Project, which is essentially a new mini downtown. And that bus runs on a loop, and you can jump off of the metro and jump on it. And they're testing it actively right now. I actually saw it the other day. But there's a whole host of these types of things happening in the region right now. Northern Virginia is kind of perfect for this type of thing.
And then I know that VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, has connected and autonomous vehicle program. And I actually have seen those cars running around. They're sort of trooping on the highway, which is always interesting. And so I guess if you look, Juan, at the beginning of this this webinar, I had some of those top line numbers. The growth rates are astonishing. So what might be a barrier to achieving those growth rates? Like, so what are the things that you at Starship are concerned about that have to be conquered in order for you to capture that wave?
Definitely. So, there's always challenges with any new service, new area, but we really try to work with the local authorities, whether it's the government, the police, make sure everyone's aware and that we have the actual permission to operate. Some of our competitors might go into like San Francisco or some other city without talking to anyone, and they quickly find out that that's not the way to go about things, so they might get kicked off. But we make sure that we have either a law, so we have a law in Virginia that allows us to operate, and we also work with local cities and city governments to make sure that we are able to operate. Aside from that, there's some community outreach that we do to make sure the public is informed about what we're doing. So we make sure that the robots have proper signage on them, that we sometimes do community events and try to get on the news and things like this to kind of spread the word about what we're doing.
And
sorry, I was just going to say, I think to that point that that Juan made, working with local governments, we can really provide a value in establishing the connection with our partner businesses. And I think Tatiana and Coyote is exactly what happened here. And I think for partnering with governments of all sizes, that can be a real time saver and cost saver for the business, because without the relationships established by the government, you could burn through many months of establishing those individual relationships when the government may already have them in place, and save some real time and help bring something to market much faster.
to that point, whether it's engaging with the business community or working with other departments of government, because some of these items are regulated, right? Technologies. I don't know to what extent this is, but I can imagine a lot of folks have a view on technologies of various sorts. I guess, when we look at just the adoption, and Chris, I think, and then we prepped for this, Tatiana mentioned that you were part of a team that brought scooters early on, which are now pervasive, right? But they weren't pervasive 3 or 4 years ago. So what led you to that decision, and what did it work out?
So it actually is kind of representative of our approach to new technologies and how we as a city government can not necessarily manage those things, but face those things. The scooters were coming either way. I think what happened with Fairfax was that we sort of proactively stepped up, reached out to the scooter companies and said, we know you're coming in, rather than just have you throw these machines and devices all around the city, let's work together to build a program so that they're both regulated but also ordered within the city. And it actually ended up being a benefit to the scooter companies who managed their resources in the city, and also to us, so that we could work collectively with our governing body and with some residents in the city.
Now you sort of hinted at, and I know you don't want to discuss it at the moment, of other technologies or innovations coming. Are there, so without regard to those examples, are there more outlier type technologies or services you're looking to bring to Fairfax City?
Yes. There are. And I think if you zoom out from a 10,000 foot perspective, what we're really looking to do is bring services and technologies, specifically as it relates to economic development, that make life easier for our businesses and residents and strengthen the connection between the businesses and residents. The Starship pilot that we had launched is representative of that. It helped us connect residents, consumers, with the businesses that, frankly, people were hesitant to interact with at the beginning of this pandemic because they didn't want to interact with people. And so, this wasn't an end-all be-all perfect fix, but it allowed these businesses to continue engaging with their consumers during a time of great uncertainty.
Well, you also mentioned something that I believe it was what would have been a 2 to 3 week process in implementing Starship.
The other, yeah. So it probably, and just for the attendees, we had started expressing an interest in Starship prior to the pandemic, and at that time frame, we were sort of looking at a 4 to 6 to maybe even an 8-month sort of review period, making sure everything was set up and in place. Nobody wants to say they're taking advantage of a bad situation, but the pandemic was a crisis that allowed us to act proactively and quickly to cut that time from 4 to 8 months down to literally 2.5 weeks. And we were really only able to do that because of we had a lot of support, as we usually do, from our city council and our mayor, but also from sort of the nimble nature of our business community and the company Starship that we were working with. So it was an aligning of stars that allowed us to, no pun intended, but to launch this quickly.
So $1 million question for you, Chris, is have you used Starship?
Yeah, many times, and probably many more ahead. At the early stage of the pandemic, when economic development staff were some of the few people actually working in person out of City Hall, handing out some, continuity of business stuff, there were a lot of coffee orders. Yeah.
Now, I heard margarita mentioned, so coffee transitions to margarita. Maybe that's an upcoming delivery. I don't know.
Juan, if you have any discount codes for Margarita Monday, let me know.
Oh, is it Margarita Monday? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I guess, to touch on, tell us a bit, just to segue to your mobile, because, a lot of the prior series was beyond COVID-19, and it talked about helping people, getting food to places, services, people to hospitals, doctors' offices. Tell us a little bit the catering business, if you would, and where adventures, et cetera.
Well, right now, we're a little limited based on the number of people that can gather is only 10.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I meant the mobile unit.
Oh, you mean the food truck?
I do.
Okay, yeah, the roaming coyote. So we, just like the word of 2020, which is pivot, we pivoted and really thought where are all the people? And the people are in their neighborhoods, and they're working from home. So our corporate business just went to zero because no one's in any of the office buildings. So we pivoted and built an online ordering app, again, using technology, which made it contactless. So there was no gathering at food trucks, which you normally see like crazy, everyone's gathering at trucks. So we've been going to probably about 50, 60 neighborhoods since the beginning of the pandemic. And we go every single night. And interestingly enough, my sales for 2020 were up 10% over 2019 going into these neighborhoods.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was so it's worked really well, and people are really adapted. They, everybody's working from home. They're tired of cooking. They're tired of, having to just make meals. So the alternative is to bring food trucks in. So now you have a lot of these HOA administrators and people that are in charge of bringing these food trucks in, and that's what they do. They've just gotten used to it. So hopefully that will change.
And a good community build as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, all the local communities right here in Fairfax City have welcomed us into their neighborhood with the food truck on them, usually once a month at least, sometimes even more.
So just to the audience, again, we are taking questions. There's one I'm going to read here, and it's specific to Fairfax City. And I believe it's addressing, sort of aimed at Juan here. Will we, the city, continue to share the fleet with GMU, George Mason University? And will services be reciprocated to offer city residents goods sold on campus? That's an interesting question.
Sure. So I can answer probably part of that. And just going back to kind of the start of the pandemic, obviously we saw a lot of the college campuses shut down when COVID really hit. And that's what caused us, again, to pivot to these neighborhood markets. So Fairfax City is like an adjacent market to GMU, but they do share a fleet of robots. And right now they are still sharing the fleet. I will say, like, GMU has come back, and it's come back strong. So it's also having good business there. Let's see. So
yeah.
So GMU services, or I guess GMU vendors, are not delivering outside of campus at the moment. It's just kind of each is in its own individual kind of area.
And so to further that question, so Starship makes a business arrangement with each individual restaurant, right? And then
That's
that
right.
and that survives, and away you go, depending on where they are, right, within the capabilities of the robot. Okay, great. And I think I look at again in my mind, or Amazon. Amazon in the last year, I looked this up. I didn't have it in that chart, but Amazon quadrupled its orders, its deliveries rather, mainly through the trucks, right? But that, from a cost perspective, does not seem to be a very sustainable model. Hence the growth on the robot side. Now they're aiming toward, famously about the drones, right, which have other regulatory implications. And then they began their Amazon Prime service. I think it's called Scout, is the Amazon Prime delivery robot. Do you see yourselves as competing one with Amazon in the future, or sticking with your niche?
Yeah, just trying to be careful with my wording here.
Yeah, I'm pushing a little bit.
Sure. So Amazon does have a competing robot. It's called Scout, like you mentioned. I guess I would say imitation is a form of flattery. It's pretty similar to a robot, but I don't think we're competing necessarily on the same things right now. So they're focused on their own package delivery service. They're not doing food delivery, and they're not doing delivery on campuses, which is our biggest thing right now.
Right. Interesting. And so, Tatiana, it's just, I think we can, I'm not seeing any other questions. So we'll just, again, to the audience, if you have a question, this is your moment to pose it, please. But Tatiana, what has this done for your business? Has this been sort of, the start of something, or was it a monumental shift, or how was it?
I think it's just a matter of exposure and being able to have this technology available to my customer base, and for them to be able to see really where robots are going in the future. So we're kind of partnering in that way. And a lot of people, the huge amount of interest. I mean, everybody that walked up to the restaurant, or we did that piece on Fox 5. A lot of people were excited to see that they could get their food in the form of a robot delivering it. I would have never thought about that in a year or two ago, but now it's just it's integrated into the business.
Okay, great. And it's fascinating with technology adoption. Things may seem, first off, it's all new, but it may seem adjunct to the core business. But look at those growth numbers, folks. It is not adjunct. It is it's a precursor to what's coming very, very quickly. So it'll be fascinating to watch Starship, other companies penetrate markets, offer new delivery services. And I think if you look at, even by the end of this year, there was a stat out there that we're looking at a 2x fold delivery of food across just the United States. And of course, the rest of the world has its own behavior. Great. I want to thank the panel. I want to thank the audience. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This webinar will be on novaeda.org. And normally I flip back to my slide deck, but it'll take me 10 minutes with my connectivity, so I won't do that. So novaeda.org, under events, you'll see every one of the episodes that we have filmed so far, and the previous series, Beyond COVID-19 Business Resiliency webinars. So thanks again. Thank you, panel. Thank you, audience.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, and good luck to perseverance.
That's right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.